So now we're recording. Meron is a veteran Israeli journalist who's written for Yediot Achronot, Haaretz, and various Israeli and international news outlets. He presently serves as a writer and editor in local Call 972 magazine. He's one of the founders of A Land for All, which was formerly called Two States, One Homeland, the organization we're hearing from tonight, or in the case of many of you today. Thabet Abu Ras is the co-executive director of the Abraham Initiatives. He has authored many publications and served with a variety of shared society organizations within Israel. He's on the executive board of A Land for All / Two States, One Homeland. A Land for All, in the eyes of Roots, is a partner organization. Roots sees itself as a grassroots movement that's preparing the groundwork in human hearts for a future settlement. And among the many settlements that are on the table, the propositions, the ideas for how we can go forward politically, we see A Land for All is one of the few organizations, the few suggested solutions that aligns with the values that Roots tries to inculcate in the hearts of Palestinians and Israelis. I'm talking about the sense that this is a shared homeland. I'm talking about a sense that there must be equality. I'm talking about a sense that we both have to recognize that just like the whole land is ours, the whole land is also theirs, Palestinians and Israelis. I'm talking about partnership, I'm talking about equality, I'm talking about a shared homeland. So without further ado, we'll let our two speakers take the floor. They'll decide who's gonna speak first. At the end, there'll be questions and answers. I think that you can unmute yourselves without my help. So please, one of you speak, present yourself.
Good morning, good evening. Well, Pakistan, New York and Tel Aviv, so a different time zone. Hello everyone, thank you for the invitation. My name is Meron Rapoport, journalist and one of the founders of Two States, One Homeland. A Land for All. We began Israelis and Palestinian a journey about 7 years ago from the basic understanding that there are two people living between the river and the sea, between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. And those two people feel a strong attachment to the whole of the land, that they live side by side, and maybe sometimes one inside the other, and that a vision for real reconciliation means that we our vision for reconciliation is a situation in which there's no supremacy of one people over the other. There's no occupation. There's no annexation. There is equality in personal and national rights between Israelis and Palestinians. There are two independent sovereign state in which each people have its own self-determination, right to self-determination and to govern its own affairs. But at the same time, these two two people, that the sons of daughters of these two people live equally side by side without any privileges to any side. Now this is really, and we think that the most important thing is to get out of the paradigm of separation or domination, and to move to the paradigm of sharing. This is, I would say, very broadly the idea behind two states, one homeland. Now, there, of course, we are a political organization. We're a political organization in the sense that we offer a political solution. And we translate this notion, this vision that I have mentioned, we translated it into a political program. It's quite detailed in one way and maybe short of details on the other. It depends also on the means that we have, but we have developed an idea of how to solve this conflict, and in a way that will respect each other with mutual respect and esteem. I would go into not too many details in order, because you can go to our site, to our website, LN for All, and it's in English and in Arabic and in Hebrew, and you can read and have more a better idea of our vision and our program. But I will just in very short, I will explain, the vision. We think that the idea of separation that was in the basis of the peace process started, let's say, in the Oslo Agreement. The idea that we are here and they are there, and doesn't matter who is they and who are we. This idea is both impossible to achieve and as well as undesirable. We see at least three main obstacles on the way of separation between Israelis and Palestinians. And I would refer to settlements, refugees, and Jerusalem. The idea of separation requires the dismantling of the settlements and pushing back the Israelis who live there back into Israel. This is, of course, as we have seen, quite difficult. I'm not saying impossible to achieve. We don't see the settlement as legal. We say they are illegal. They were built illegally, but we acknowledge the fact that it's not easy to dismantle the settlements, but we say something deeper than that, than the difficulty. We say that the fact that Jews want to live in West Bank, Judea and Samaria is part of the attachment that they feel to the whole of the land. So therefore, we think that they should be, they are entitled to live wherever they want, provided, of course, that it will not be out of with privileges, provided they will be equal to the people around them, and provided that they will accept to live under Palestinian sovereignty. So this is one difficulty that the separation model faces. The other issue, which is more difficult for Jews to comprehend, I think, is the issue of Palestinian refugees. according to most agreement, or whether official or unofficial, between Israelis and Palestinians, Israel has always rejected the idea that Palestinian refugees will come back. But we know that the issue of return for the refugees is a central issue to the conflict. And without solving this issue, there will be no real solution. So therefore, we say that with separation, with the ignoring the right of return, we will not have a solution. And the third is Jerusalem. Jerusalem, according to the classical two-state solution, should be divided, but it's very, very difficult to divide. So therefore, what we offer is a kind of an idea, as I said, built on partnership between two independent states. Two independent states, Israel and Palestine, on the 67 borders. Two democratic states based on human rights, respect of human rights. But these two states will be part of a confederation, a union. The name is less important, that they will be part of a larger entity, which will allow Palestinians to live in Israel if they wish to, Palestinian citizens, and allow Israeli citizens to live in Palestine if they wish to. Meaning there will be freedom of movement and freedom of residence between the two states, not very different from the idea of the EU. So there will be open, these two states will have open borders. These two states will have a shared institution, important institution for security, human rights, economy, climate, etc., and other issues. Jerusalem will be a shared city for both states, run together by both states, and past injustices, and we are talking mainly about injustices of 48, will be mended, but without creating new ones. This is really the framework. Building on this framework, we, Israelis and Palestinians, we have made enormous meeting, discussions, conferences. We've met with tens of thousands of Israelis and Palestinians, with politicians, with diplomats, with local leaders, community leaders, religious leaders. We have appeared on the press. We have pushed the idea that there is a third alternative, that the failure of the two states does not mean that we are going to one state, that there is an alternative in between. And I think now, and before I pass the word to Thabet, I think now, when we are facing today possible annexation within a month, I think that we are facing now really two options. One is an option of almost an official supremacy of Jews in the land, and almost an official apartheid, giving rights only to Jews, Israeli Jews, or the other option is equality and a land for all, and sharing between the two people on equal terms. These are the two options. I really don't see, I think that the old two-state solution has failed us. We have to go forward. We have to put forward the idea of equality between the two people and and people of these two in this land. I will pass the word to Thabet.
Thank you, Meron. Thabet, please.
Shukran, Meron, shukran, Hanan. Hello, everybody, shalom. And I can say it in 3 different languages. Hopefully one day everybody will talk the 3 languages. So it will be easier for me to talk in Arabic. In any case, it's easier for me. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you for emotional space, especially nowadays. I know it's tough for most of you. From the names, from the faces that I know, some of them, I believe most of you are Americans, and we are watching the news, and I would like to express my love to United States and United States people. And I studied there. I spent 10 years in the United States. I got my master's degree and PhD in University of Arizona in political geography, University of Arizona, as I said. So watching what's going on, I wish United States will just pass through this crisis more equal, more just, more democratic, and more peaceful. And I believe in the American people. We are sharing several challenges nowadays, especially the issue of COVID-19, fighting COVID-19. The situation is really better than the United States. It seems to me that the Arab minority inside Israel and the Palestinian people really coping with this issue. It's a lot better than other places. And this gives me hope that the Palestinians can manage their life better in terms of politics also. I'm very critical of what's going on in the Palestinian Authority, but it's at least I would like just to say a chapeau to the Palestinian Authority with how it's dealing with how dealt with the issue of COVID-19. But still we are in Israel facing one more challenge, serious challenge. I would say even a historical challenge of make Israel more Jewish state on the expense of its democratic values. And the issue, we saw that in the national state law in 1.5 years ago, but also the possible annexation, unilateral annexation of the deal of the century, that it's becoming serious, and they are talking about July. Still, I believe that it's not going to happen just because it's against Israeli. I believe Israeli, it's not good neither for Israel nor for Palestinian. But still, I believe that there is a lot of hope that we are suggesting actually. Our plan, our endeavor actually is suggesting, first of all, a hope, giving hope for both parties, for Israelis and for Palestinians. I hope that, yes, that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict can be solved. This is one thing. And the other thing, that it's give a hope, and that this land between the Jordanian River and the Mediterranean, it belongs to everybody, belongs to Jews and belongs to Palestinians. And they both have the right to live in peaceful way in this land. They are entitled to live here and to respect each other. And we know that this kind of, I will say, principles that, or issues that Oslo Accord, Oslo Agreement overpassed these issues, that we are suggesting now as a solution for these issues. Something people think that we are fantasizing or something like that. No, we are not fantasizing. We are very realistic people. We are both Palestinians and Israelis. It's not only, we are not only Israeli people that really fantasizing. Actually, we are Palestinians and Israelis working for such endeavor, and to try to convince everybody that it can work. I believe it can work. I'm happy to have this dual nationality, I will say dual identity. It's better to define it. I am a Palestinian by my nationality, and I'm Israeli by my citizenship. I am in touch, daily touch with Jewish people, daily touch and work with Palestinians also. And I hear here and there, and both communities. Both people are eager to hear a hope. Okay, people really what's looking for a hope. And the other things that we are suggesting a comprehensive plan. We are not talking about this and that. We are leaving Jerusalem aside. We are trying to give a comprehensive solution that I would like to touch in some of the principles that we are talking about that my colleague Meron maybe left for me. But the most important thing that we're talking about that we recognize the rights of both nationalities, both people to the land. This is very important. This is the start of the hope. When Palestinians really recognize the right of Jews, when the Jews recognize the Palestinians, we can also advance. We can make some advance. And I think that the Palestinians and the Israelis, the Jews, are should enjoy this homeland, and they have to enjoy this homeland. And when I'm talking about the homeland, I read already one question: is Gaza part of the homeland? Yes, Gaza is part of the homeland. It's part of geographical Palestine. So I'm talking as a political geographer also. So when we talk about the principle of two independent and sovereign state, we are talking about Palestinian state that consists of Gaza Strip and the West Bank, okay, alongside Israel. So Gaza is part of the solution. The second principle that I would like to emphasize, we are really extremely against the notion we are here and they are there. No, we are here and we are there too, okay? Both Palestinians and Israelis. It's the homeland, okay? Well, I recognize the right of Jews. Really, when I think about the history of Jewish people in this land, I know that Judea and Samaria, Beit El, it's more interested for the Jews than Jaffa and Ashkelon and Gaza, for sure, okay? From my point of view, this is how I look at that. So for me, that Jews really attached to the all of the homeland, the same with the Palestinians. I would like just to focus in 3 of our 11 principles, and you can really read those principles in our website. We are talking, one important principle, we are talking about that the past injustice, and there is a lot of injustices done for both people, especially for the Palestinians. Nothing to ignore here, okay? Past injustices will not be really fixed or resolved by doing or causing injustice to the people who are living today here. Well, I can tell you, half of my family, for those who don't know me very well, I just explained that in the past. I talked about that. Half of my family used to live, my mom's side of the family used to live in southern Israel today in a Palestinian village called Heribia, close to Ashkelon, okay? They became refugees following the Nakba of 1948. And they live now, hundreds of my family members live in the refugee camp in Gaza. Unfortunately, I cannot visit them. I don't have, I can call them, but I don't have any connection with them. A personal connection means I cannot see them. However, I can tell you that the village of my mom, okay, there is a lot of, the village that my mom born in it called Heribia, today became the kibbutz, Karmiya, and Zikim in the south, okay? Well, I have a good relationship with the Jewish people of the Shmutznikim, the Shomer Tzair people who established the 2 kibbutzim. I went there with Meron, talked about our plan. And I said that clearly, we are not going to fix the Palestinian refugee issue on the expense of the existing Jewish kibbutzim and so forth. So it's very important to mention that injustice cannot be fixed by doing injustice for other people. The other issue, principle that I would like you to mention, as a Palestinian, I know the issue of security is a major concern for the Jewish people. I know that. I live in Israel. I read a lot about that. Honestly, I would like to admit we don't have all of the answers for that. We are not security experts. However, I believe by establishing, solving the issues, all issues, the conflict in peaceful way, it's already, we are doing a great step toward solving the security issues. I know there is a lot of fear. There's a very strong fear discourse within Israeli society. But let's face it, there is also politics of fear within Israeli politics here, that using this issue of fear. No, Palestinians really eager and they want peace, not less than the Israeli people, okay? And they live in misery already 72 years, and they understand that it's about to compromise, about to live in peace. So the issue of the major concern of security can be solved by just getting the idea that to protect, first of all, the homeland as a homeland, okay? Both parties, both states, both security forces, okay? And still internal security, each country will have its, will take care of its internal security. When we talk about foreign, there is no foreign forces in this land. We can talk, we are talking about demilitarization of the area also. But still, we can develop this issue to more detailed plan and work really to bring, just to try to convince people that it can work also peacefully. The issue, the last issue that I would like to refer to, the open land vision. It's very important for us just to wander in this homeland and enjoy it, okay? Establishing two independent and sovereign states will not really prevent the idea of free movement between the two states. People can work, can live in wherever they want. Again, the issue of how, maybe somebody will ask, how we can keep this state as a Jewish state, okay? We know that Israel will always have a Jewish majority. When we talk people, Palestinian people working here or living here, we think that these people cannot be part of the Israeli citizens. They can maybe be part of Israeli community because they live here or working here. So they cannot be, they are permanent residents, but not really citizens, okay? The same thing with Jewish people, okay? Who would like to live within the Palestinian state. One challenge that I would like to end with it, a challenge to convince Palestinian, the challenge of settlements. The Israeli Jewish settlements was established and have been established actually in very tough way. Still, almost 40% of the Palestinian, of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank really established in a private land. There is an issue there, okay? So we are, again, saying we have to keep saying it's a legitimate endeavor. From my point of view, the settlements, it's a illegitimate endeavor. It's illegal. However, with peace negotiation, we can legitimize these places. Maybe not all of the places, but we have to talk to the Palestinians. Palestinian government, Palestinian independent and sovereign state have the right to decide about its plans, about the planning and the plan. But all in all, we have the future Palestinian state should, just like other modern countries around the world, I would like to see the Palestinian state more democratic, multi-party system, respecting not only human rights, but minority rights. As I demand from Israel, I know that we have a democracy in Israel. For me, it's a hollow democracy, okay? With a democracy, not complete democracy that's shrinking over time. However, it's a democratic regime. And we saw that in the last election that Arabs still can really influence And I would like to see the same system, more democratic system even in the Palestinian state. This is what we hope for. This is what we should work for. But building a trust is very important. How are we going to build the trust? Working together, Jews and Arabs, not only inside Israel, but crossing the border, the green line border, which is going to be the right border between the two independent and sovereign states. I would be happy to answer the questions. I would like to stop here.
Thank you, Thabet. We do have certainly
just
enough
before,
time.
oh,
Yes.
Just before answering the question, the many questions that I see that are already Thabet says that his family from his mother's side are refugees in Gaza. I was born in Tel Aviv and lived in Tel Aviv, and in my youth, I didn't know even that there are Arabs around me. It was a completely Jewish city, certainly in the 60s and the early 70s. And I really didn't meet many Arabs. Only when I became a journalist and started to go around the land, I started to realize and had to deal with my fears as Jewish Israeli. And I remember one time I went to Gaza, and I went to Rafah. I was escorted by the PA, an officer from the PA, and he warned me that in Rafah people are quite not happy with Israel. It was after a raid, an Israeli raid, and he told me, please don't speak Hebrew. Don't say you are an Israeli. Don't speak Hebrew. Say you are a foreign correspondent, and don't let know that you are in Israel. And we went to Rafah, to the main square of Rafah, and we sat a few people, and he arranged for a few people to sit with me and talk about the last raid. And I started talking in English. I said, I'm an Italian journalist, and and what happened that night? I asked in English, and then the leader of the group, of the Palestinian group, looked at me and said, listen, I don't speak English so good. Maybe we will speak in Hebrew. And it turned out that he spent 10 or 15 years in Tel Aviv working, and all the people around him spoke Hebrew, and we went and spoke for 2 hours in Hebrew in the middle of Rafah, and I really understood that we are here together. So we have to deal with our own fears.
Thank you, Meron, and thank you, Thabet. I'd like to take the prerogative of saying a few words myself before questions and answers. And I'm speaking both as an individual, I'm speaking as a member of Roots, and I'm also speaking as someone with a deep connection to and appreciation for the Land for All movement. I want to try and say in my words what speaks to me most deeply in this particular political plan. From my perspective, there is a tremendous conundrum, actually many tremendous conundrums that we have to overcome to begin solving this conflict. In Roots, I've learned over the past 6.5 years that just like I, as a Jew and Israeli, have a deep historical, legitimate, religious, cultural connection to the whole land from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, the Palestinians also have a deep historical, legitimate, cultural, religious connection to the whole land, the same whole land. According to my understanding, legitimately and truthfully, in righteousness, both sides deserve the whole land. Both sides are connected and belong to the whole land. How do you make peace when both sides want, need, and deserve the whole land, and at the same time, each side wants its own particular state to express its own particular history and identity and culture. That's a conundrum, that's a paradox, that's a contradiction that it's very difficult to see a way to get out of. Now, the two-state solution, the classical two-state solution of Oslo said we can't let either side have a complete expression of its true connection to the land. We have to split the land. And when we split the land, this is my opinion, both sides lose. We are stealing. I have to mute someone. Roland from Ireland, can you, I'm going to mute you. Okay, I muted. The two-state solution of separation, as both our speakers said, them there and us here, or vice versa, complete separation, two separate states, that solution steals from me part of my homeland, and it steals from the Palestinians part of their homeland. Peace of that sort makes enemies. It takes the people who are most connected to their historical identity and makes them enemies of peace. It does them injustice. So the question is, how do we give justice to both sides? It looks like it's impossible. And here we've heard tonight a solution that gives justice to both sides. I just want to explain why I understand that there's here justice to both sides. Because we're talking about two states, as you heard, Israel and Palestine, more or less separated along the 67 border, the Green Line, but they're not two separate states. They're interconnected. They're interconnected by open borders. You can move from one side to the other without being checked. They're connected by open residency. You can live wherever you want. As both of the speakers said, you can live wherever you want. You're a Palestinian Israeli. If you're a Palestinian, you can live in Israel. If you're an Israeli, you can live in Palestine. If you're an Israeli living in Palestine, you have citizenship in Israel, not in Palestine. You live in Palestine as a resident, not a citizen. If you're a Palestinian and you want to live in Israel, you can live in Israel as a resident, not a citizen. In other words, there's open borders and open residency, freedom of movement, freedom of living. And then thirdly, the Confederation that combines these two states into a joint homeland. And the minute I, an Israeli, living wherever I am, within one side of the border, the minute there's a confederation, now I have a sense that I've gotten the whole cake. Because of the confederation, I'm a citizen not just of my own particular state, Israel, I'm also a citizen of the Confederation. I have a sense that the solution has given me my own particular state to express there my culture and my religion and my history, but it's also given me a connection to the whole land, so I don't feel that my identity has been nullified. I don't feel that something has been stolen from me. And the same thing, I think, for a Palestinian. He may live in Shechem, he may live in Hebron, and he's living in the Palestinian state, but his homeland, including Jaffa, including Akkao, including Haifa, his homeland has not been stolen from him because he has freedom of movement there, freedom of residency there, and the joint homeland, the Confederation, has made the whole land his. To me, this is amazing. Of course, it's difficult, and of course, there are many, many problems to overcome, but the theory is just amazing that it recognizes both sides' historical connection to the whole land and also recognizes both sides' need for their own particular state to express their identity. So for Roots, this is a model to work towards. It's a goal. It's something that expresses in political terms all of the basic principles that we are trying to inculcate on the ground. So I just want to thank Meron and Thabet for, I would say, for giving me a way to express my hopes and dreams for this land in the future, something that my grassroots efforts can move towards and see as a fulfillment of everything we're doing. And now we can get into the nitty-gritty of the questions and answers. So I'm looking at the chat box, and of course everyone can look there together with me. I'm looking at the top. I saw that.
I think
yes,
Thabet also answered the question about Gaza. Does our plan program includes Gaza? It does. It does. Gaza is part of Palestine in all agreement. And I think I would even add that the unilateral withdrawal of Israel from Gaza that was supposed to prove that here, if we make separation, then if we will separate the people, there will be no friction and violence will go down. We have seen the other way around. We have seen in Gaza that the unilateral withdrawal has only brought more misery, more to the Palestinian, but also to the resident of the southern part of Israel, even up to Tel Aviv. So Gaza is part of the story, and unilateral solution is no solution. I will take maybe 2 questions, and then Thabet 2 questions. Jeffrey asked about addressing the wrongs of 48. Do we see a formal truth and reconciliation process? I think it's not part of the booklet that we are writing now. It will be published, I hope, very soon, in a few weeks, in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. It's not really part of it, but it's definitely, I think, on the agenda to have a truth reconciliation. It's necessary. We have to deal with the past if we want to go forward. Stefan asked about how do we deal with extremists seeking reigns of power in Palestine in the short or long term, refers mainly to Gaza. Well, I think there will be always extremists who will try to sabotage on both sides. But I think once you deal with the fundamental issues, then you have, and we deal it with mutual respect, then you have a chance to move forward and make extremists less powerful. We have to remember, let's take the Northern Ireland example. Peace in Northern Ireland is not achieved through a very strict police or military rule by the British. It was achieved once both sides had what we call parity of esteem for both sides, for the Irish Catholics and the British Protestant. So yes, security is important, but once the roots of the conflict are dealt with and people get their self-respect, I think extremists will have less power.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Briefly? Huh?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, 2 things. One is my friends are in detention. These people are like family to me. I've been waiting a month to see what would be done to get their release. They haven't been released. I don't really see how you're going to burst this bubble, to be honest with you. And I think if you really want to establish trust, why don't you start with a smaller short-term initiative? For example, inviting back the descendants of refugees to a given area, either within Israel proper or within the future Palestinian state, and initiate this renunciation of violence between the people before jumping to a political solution.
Thank you. Meron, Thabet? Thabet, you are muted. Thabet, you're still muted.
Sorry, but now it's okay, right?
Yes,
okay.
Now it's okay.
Well, the issue of a process, the need for a process, the need to start, it's some of the questions really related to that timing frame. And I agree. Yeah, we need time, we need a process, we need to start with small steps. This is why I'm talking about building a trust. Yes, I agree, but we have right now to set a goal, to set a vision, where we're gonna go, okay? Because, you know, there's a lot of mistrust. Netanyahu, I give a very small example. Netanyahu, a few years ago, talked about, in Bar Ilan speech, talked about Palestinian state. Now he's not talking about Palestinian state at all. So people would like to know that this
Endgame.
roadmap. They need a roadmap and vision goal in the end of establishing a Palestinian independent and sovereign state. I agree with the need for steps of building a trust. However, I believe that the situation cannot really wait. What we see right now, Israel is taking over more and more land with the annexation now, and the annexation of East Jerusalem, just the recognition by the Americans and the annexation of Jerusalem. And 1967, we talked about a Palestinian state of 28% of the total geographical land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean. Today, we are talking about around 16% or less than that. So it's not going to take us to anywhere without setting a goal of two independent and sovereign states based on 1967 border. Now, the issue of Hayatal asked about the difference in political structure and the economic abilities. That's true. After more than 50 years of occupation, you cannot really expect to see Palestinians have real developed economic abilities, economic structure. However, I believe that the Palestinians, very educated people, just like the Jews, they don't have the abilities of the Jewish people in terms of financial abilities. However, the education abilities, they have educated people, education abilities, and they can really develop their own country in peacetime. The issue of the incitement. Anyway, going back to the Palestinian infrastructure, I believe that the Palestinian people really, if I compare them not with Israel, with other Arab countries, other Arab nations, they are very democratic people with a lot of problems. They have their own problems. They have their own fragmentations right now under occupation. Gaza, Hamas, and Fatah in the West Bank, but they can really overcome these issues because the people, the Palestinian people, are really educated people, first of all. The issue of incitement, I know that there are still a lot of work to do. There is a lot of incitement, not only among Palestinians, it's in Israeli society, there's a lot of incitement, not only against the Palestinian in the other side of the border, but inside Israel even, against Arabs and Palestinians. So we have to work on this issue. We suggest in our principle, establishing a joint institutions to deal with this kind of obstacles for peace. Yes, our way, it's long, but we have to agree in a roadmap and to start to work on it.
I will address other question, Chaim and Esther, so I don't know who asked the question, asked about what makes this plan better than the binational state. Well, I think I have no opposition to a binational state once it is really binational, in the sense that both nations have a real self-rule and in equal terms. In general, if we are talking, let's say, Belgium is a binational state, it's not a bad idea, or Switzerland, it's a tri-national state. So it's not a bad idea in itself, but I think in the situation, the political situation that we are in, first of all, Palestinian needs their own state. They need the end of occupation. So therefore, two states is still the better idea. It is recognized internationally under international law. So I think it's a better idea. There's also a question if a Jew living in Palestine wants to become Palestinian national or vice versa, Palestinian in Israel. In general, it's for the states to decide, for Palestine to decide whether it wants to naturalize Israeli Jews and vice versa, but they don't have to. The idea is that they don't have to. The idea is, and this comes to the next question by Yitz, if I read correctly, is asking where does similar model work. So in the EU, in a certain way, it works in this way, where German nationals can live in France as resident of Paris, let's say, and vice versa. French citizens can live in Berlin as French citizens and resident of Berlin. We are talking more or less about the same idea, that this union confederation holds these two states together. Whether a third state like Jordan will want to join, it's a question for the future. We're not talking about it now, but it could be open in the future if it's will be successful. So it will be maybe a bigger union. Who in the Knesset, Israeli government, is on board with this plan? Well, I think, first of all, we have to understand today the political situation in Israel is that we don't have forces in the government. We have one man, one force, his name is Benjamin Netanyahu. The other don't count too much, and I'm not saying that we have influence on Netanyahu, but I think we have people in the Knesset, both more on the left, within the joint list, and even in blue and white. There are some people that we talk to. I don't want to go into names because I wait for them to go public, but they understand and they support and they understand this is the situation. Victor is asking whether the Ottoman Empire was a federation. Well, it was first of all an empire, but there are interesting things. It's quite remarkable to say that both Jabotinsky and Ben-Gurion and Herzl really thought about the national home of the Jews in Palestine as part of the Ottoman Confederation. They were talking about an Ottoman Confederation in which the Jewish home in Palestine will be just a part of this vision. So it's of course very far, but this is just a reminder. Yes, there is. What is interesting maybe is we have a past. We have a past here in the Middle East of Jews and Arabs living together. We have a past during the Ottoman times of Jews living in Egypt, in many parts of the Middle East, peacefully with the Arabs. And we have this common memory, and we have to revive it. Not everything was rosy. We know that the last 30 years before 48 became more and more difficult for the Jews in the Arab and Muslim world. But there is a history of many years of that we have to revive it.
Okay, can I just add? There are a lot of questions. There is maybe more a need for more conversation, but I would like to be nasty a little bit, to be not politically correct. And excuse me, I believe still there is a lot of prejudice against the Palestinians. It's about time to wake up. Hey guys, wake up. The Palestinian people, really smart people, they want peace. But at the same time, I can say that no nation, no group, no people have the monopoly on stupidity and corruption and peace and wisdom. Neither Jews nor Palestinians. Nowadays, we are talking about the corruption of the Palestinian Authority, and exactly nowadays we know what's going on in Israel with Netanyahu. Okay, so I am not saying that there is no corruption in the Palestinian Authority. Okay, but I believe that the situation within the Palestinian Authority not allowing a lot of flexibility to work. I believe that the Palestinians have to work and have to deliver better job to their people. And I believe the Palestinian people and the Israeli people, yes, and the Israeli people deserve better better leaders, okay? But don't think that if the Palestinians wanted to solve the issues, they will solve it. No, no. I believe the Palestinians went to Oslo Accord agreement, Arafat and Rabin. I just remind you. I would like to remind you that the Palestinians suggested, not only the Palestinians, all Arab countries, the Arab initiatives, and was refused by Israel. So please, I'm not saying that the Palestinians not making mistakes. They are having a lot of mistakes. I believe that they have to improve their work. But when we talk about corruption and seriousness in peace, Anna Mekim, please just think about that. The Palestinian normal people, smart people, they are gearing toward independence and have their own freedom. They want their own freedom. And I believe that Israel is preventing their freedom. First of all, I'm not saying that they are not making mistake. I believe what's going on in Gaza, I have to blame it Hamas. I have to blame it Egypt. But first of all, Israel with its siege on Gaza, okay? So when people are really poor and have nothing, they would like to be just try to be, to go after the regime, the bad regime in Gaza, okay? No doubt that Hamas is not serving the Palestinian interests from my point of view, okay? But what's important for us to know that the Palestinians really, they have a strong desire of peace and they are supporting the two-state solution still, most of them. Despite the fact that the support of two-state solution is going and shrinking over time, okay? But still they are looking for peace with Israel.
Of course, I joined Thabet. I think Israelis, and also outside, but certainly Israeli Jews don't really know Palestinian and don't estimate. I think, yes, Palestinian mainly. There are a lot of mistakes, and I think in the second Intifada, many mistakes were done, especially for using violence. But I think the Palestinians generally are ready for peace, and I think we Israelis have to understand it and deal with it. And I will try to run to. Eitan is asking what are the main needs of the Palestinian people. Israeli are mainly worried by security. Yes, I mentioned it before. Yes, Israel is aware with security, but I said before, security in itself, tanks in themselves will not bring us peace. It didn't work nowhere. Nowhere was peace established only on the force of guns. If you want peace, certainly if you want reconciliation, we have to deal with the core issues, and the core issues are really this attachment to the whole of the land and the mutual recognition that we, Jews, are part of the land, and of course Palestinians are part of the land. Marga asking...
Meron, the questioner is also asking, what do the Palestinians want? What is their major need?
I'm not speaking with Palestinian, but I think Palestinians need, first of all, freedom. They need freedom, they need self-respect, they need freedom to move, freedom to live and know that they can move freely and live freely and have and be respected, and of course be equal. I think, but freedom, I think I would say, if there's one word, I would say it's freedom. I think so.
Thabet, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the issue of freedom and independence and dignity, I believe it's very important for Palestinians. Can you imagine tomorrow? Well, we are talking about steps. Here we go. I would like to suggest a good step. If the Israeli government, the existing Israeli government, allowing 50,000 Palestinian Gazan, women and men, their age 50 and above, okay? I would like to take the security concern, Israeli security concern in the consideration. Just to start to work in Israel, okay? 50,000, and there is, you know, in the 80s and the early 90s, more than 50,000 Palestinians from Gaza worked in Israel, okay? I remember days when Israelis went to Gaza, not only for shopping, but went for a dentist, went to go, Bank Abu Alim branch was working in Gaza, okay? So, and it was under occupation. Just imagine, we have, again, to give a hope for the Palestinian, okay? We are closing the Palestinians, okay? You know, all of the closure to the West Bank since 1967 was always were initiated by the Israeli government. For the first time, the Palestinian themselves, they are closing the Palestinian towns now because of the COVID-19, okay? This is one of the measures. So who is really control the space between the Jordanian River and the Mediterranean? Okay, the Israelis. And the Israelis not only closing Gaza. Just imagine they are in charge of all of the entrance to the homeland, with Jordan, for example, with Egypt, with everywhere, from the air, from the sea, so a Palestinian want freedom and want dignity. Give the people hope they are part of this homeland. And I think these things will change. We will see terror attacks will shrink, will go down, hatred will go down, and hope will go up. And I think the first step should start with Israel.
Thank you.
That's so many questions. I will really try to run. Division of power between federation government and independent state, I think, is something to develop. As I said, we have a booklet out, but it will have to develop. We are talking maybe about a shared constitution, but certainly about a shared human rights court that will take care, guarantee the rights of minorities everywhere, whether Jewish minorities in Palestine and Palestinian minorities in Israel. About Yitzhak is saying why the borders there. The borders are not sacred. There's no nothing sacred about the 67 border. It's a convenient border agreed internationally. If we start moving it, then Palestinian will say, why not Gaza? Why not Jaffa? Why not Ramle? Why not Lid? Why not Haifa? This is the reality. We stick to these borders, but it will be open for all. Victor asking about a Jewish state. Well, I think it's a very problematic definition, Jewish state. I'm not endorsing it as it is. We will have to see what does it mean, a Jewish state or Jewish character of the state. Haya is asking, I don't know if I really...
Haya's not asking a question. She's just commenting, I think.
Okay. Roots is saying, we Jews don't have a legal rights the same way Palestinians do. I think we don't have to go, if I understood Jeffrey's question, we have, if I understood, maybe I didn't get it, but I think rights, we are not, balancing who has more rights. We know that there are two people here, and now, and in the future, they will have the same rights. So what was in the past is important. It's important for our stories, but it's not important. And of course, Eitan, Jews have a legal right for a state. This is evident. The state of Israel will remain as the self-determination for Jews, and it will remain. So they will have the state.
Can I help you in two questions? So
yes.
Yeah. Well, I believe the Chaim asking if the Israeli are ready for peace, and he said that many are supporting annexation. Well, from my experience, the Israelis, yes, right now they are supporting annexation, but if we have a leader that can talk about peace, I believe most of the Israelis will go after the leader. Unfortunately, the saga, the Benny Gantz saga, what happened right now, something that's scary for the Israeli democracy. Right now we have a strong, it seems to me, in terms of numbers at least, the coalition is big enough and stable government, and they both parties, the Likud and the right-wing bloc, and also Kahol Lavan are supporting the annexation. And it's really bad for the Israelis. But I believe that still, individual basis, if a leader, a strong leader, and there are a lot of strong leaders in Israel, really can speak up against annexation, things can be changed. Still, in the individual basis, people, Jews and Arabs really want peace. And they cannot really understand why annexation can really prevent peace. So we have to explain that to people. The other issue, I believe there is some of the colleagues here mentioned, if we can rely on some of European models. I believe that divided societies and conflicts are around the world, some of them really solved and some of them still ongoing. So, but no doubt that the Benelux Belgium case, the Swiss case, we can learn from the experience of other nations. We can learn from the experience of the deeply divided societies to solve the problems. But we have to start. We have to start, first step, build this trust again. I'm sorry that I'm keeping saying that, by giving hope, building trust by giving hope. Let's start with small steps. Give the Palestinian free movement. Some of them, you know, the not risky people, 50 years and above. Give the women at least, okay? Give the more people, Gazan people, access to the West Bank, not only to Israel. It's not happening right now for political reasons, okay? When Netanyahu wants to pass money for Hamas people, Qatari money, he's doing that, okay? When Netanyahu is preventing money from the Palestinian terrorists to try to weakening Abu Mazen, the Palestinian terrorist is doing that. Just all about politics. It's about to talk about the life of the people, the life of the Palestinians, to give hope to the people.
There are many questions. I missed some of them. Chaya is asking me and also Hanan, but I'm now answering, how does we imagine Israel is being ready to live under Palestinian sovereignty and rule? Yes, of course, this is not easy. It's not easy, but I think when I first thought about this is when I interviewed one of the historical leader of the settlement movement. He was living in Alon Moreh. I forgot for a moment his name. I think Katzover. I don't remember the first name.
Benny.
Which one?
Benny Katzover?
Benny Katzover from Alon Moreh. And it was the time of after the disengagement from Gaza, and there was a talk about Olmert doing the same disengagement in the West Bank. And Alon Moreh is very close to Nablus, so it was evident that if there will be another disengagement, it should be dismantled. So I asked him, what do you do if Israel will decide to dismantle to withdraw from Alon Moreh? And he told me, I will fight against it democratically. I will fight against it democratically. And I said, okay, but if you lose, and he told me, listen, if I have to choose between living in Eretz Israel, close to Nablus here, or to live in Israel, I will prefer to stay here close to Nablus because even after under Palestinian sovereignty. And that was one of really the historical leaders of the settlement movement. So I think it's not easy. The question is, of course, now it seems impossible. When we are talking about annexation, maybe next month, then of course it's very difficult. But if the question will be, do we have a settlement that allows for Jews to live wherever they want in Eretz Israel, including in these very important places, Hebron and Nablus and Bethlehem, and all these places, allowing them to live there peacefully, respecting the other people's rights, and fulfilling the very mission that they went to accomplish living in the West Bank, is to reenact the historical bondage to Eretz Israel. Then I think, yes, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. It won't be easy. How many will accept? I don't know. It will be a show of confidence for Israelis to stay there, and it will be also a proof of confidence for the Palestinians to give them equal rights and treat them fairly. I think the Palestinians will have an incentive to treat them fairly, because they will know that by treating the Israelis fairly in Palestine, they will be treated fairly in all Palestine, including in Jaffa and Haifa and Ramle and Lud and all the places from which they are prevented from going into now, and they are part of their historical land.
Yeah, Itzhak, I would like to answer a question. As Itzhak asking about the border, and why not to be realistic? I don't know, Itzhak, what's realistic border for you? What's realistic for you? It's not realistic for Netanyahu, and definitely not realistic for some Palestinians who are demanding to go back to the partition plan of 1947. Okay, so 1967 border is the realistic one, just because it's really accepted by the international community, and it's the recognized international border of Israel, still recognize the international border of Israel even without East Jerusalem. Only United States recognize the right of Israel in East Jerusalem. So you know what? If the two parties would like to curve the border in a certain way, and there's a mutual agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis, we are not going to fight over this issue. Okay? What's important, just to start and to recognize independent Palestinian state. We suggest to start with 1967 border. Okay, we are not going to stop say, hey, no, it's not going to work just because you curve the border in Jerusalem or in other areas. Okay, we are talking here about principles, not more than that. We are talking about two independent and sovereign states. We have to leave something for the Palestinians. Let us remember that the Palestinians, they are in equal numbers in the homeland, just like the Israelis, the Jewish people here, okay? So we have to leave something for the other side, just to, they can really understand they can live in peace and dignity and freedom. And after all, the border really is, the importance of the border is will be reduced if we really allow free movement between the two states, as we are suggesting.
Chaya is again asking about the confidence and the fear is rising, and so people will not be ready to be a proof of confidence. I remember making an interview with the South African ambassador to Israel in 1989, when still with the apartheid regime. of course, white South African. And we talked about what could happen. And he told me, listen, there will never be a peace, an agreement with the blacks in South Africa, because once there is an agreement, they will slaughter us all the next day. A year later, after our meeting, Nelson Mandela was released, and I think 2 years later he became the president of South Africa. And the next time I met with the South African ambassador, he was black. So I think, yes, there are fears, yes, there's mistrust, but we don't have to, to magnify them. They exist. If we will change the condition, we can change also the atmosphere.
Do our two speakers want to answer one last question? You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yes, no problem.
Take your pick.
If you see, Hanan, any question that we didn't, because there's so many questions that it's difficult for me to see if we missed something. So
I saw one question high above. It was a question of what about the military? Who will guard the external border?
Again, as I think we need, again, maybe before ending, we need to develop our ideas better, and we need to go to more details, and for that we need more funding, and we will we'll appreciate very much if you can, some of you can contribute to us, because our budget is very limited. And we need that also for deepening our ideas and really go into much more details than we will have in the booklet we are having now. But and in this we will have to go more deeply into the question of security. Who will exactly guard, safeguard the external borders of the Confederation? How it will be done? In generally speaking, we are talking about independent security forces for Israel and Palestine, and cooperation on the external border, maybe with a third party aiding this binational forces on the external borders. People from the security establishment told us that once the external border will be tough, then the internal borders between Israel and Palestine could be soft. We didn't go into enough details. We would like to. This is something that we plan to go into more details. Once also we will have more availability to do it. But it will be a mix between independent forces and joint forces.
Thank you. Thabet, you are muted.
Sorry. Regarding the issue of dismantling the cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, yes, the Palestinian Authority already declared the dismantling the any relations, but I can assure you that the Palestinians don't have other options but to cooperate with Israel. The Palestinians heavily dependent on Israel. Over 80% of the money sources that come to the Palestinian Authority are coming from Israel. Revenues because of the Palestinian worker taxes and the economic activities. And also the Palestinian Authority heavily depend on its existence on the Israeli security forces. So I don't see any other options but to continue in silent way. to cooperate with Israeli security establishment. However, Palestinians is very angry, very frustrated over the deal of the century and the possible annexation of part of Area C. And they have to have a stand, political stand for their own people. And this is their stand. This is what they can say. They cannot fight. They cannot do anything but to say, stop the cooperation. However, actually, they are not stopping the cooperation.
I think we're going to put an end to our session now. Of course, I want to thank very much Thabet and Meron. I see from the questions that everyone was deeply engaged, learned, is challenged. There are many more questions. I hope that people look at the website of A Land for All and engage with our two speakers through the website. If Meron wants to put, and Thabet wants to put their email address in the chat box, that would be great. I want to acknowledge that someone asked, how can they get involved? Someone who lives here in the land between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. We don't have time to go into that, but certainly you could look at the Two States, One Homeland, A Land for All website and also write to Meron and Thabet. They'll be very, very happy for you to get involved. I think that was Chaim that asked that question. I also want to point out that I put in the chat box that Two States, One Homeland, The Land for All is interested in your donations, even though this event here on Zoom is a Roots event. Roots is happy that all our participants support also Two States, One Homeland, just like you support Roots. You can see in the chat box that you could, from America, send a donation to the PEF Israel Endowment Funds. The address there is in the chat box. You write that the check is for Two States, One Homeland, and it will be tax deductible. There's also a way to donate within the state of Israel and get a tax exemption here for those who are interested in doing that. Again, go to the website or write an email to Thabet and or to Meron. As we close, we have 1 or 2 more minutes. I'd like to point out again that Two States, One Homeland, A Land for All on the one hand, and Roots on the other hand are 2 separate organizations. We don't necessarily have the same platform, but we have a certain partnership. As I said at the beginning, Two States, One Homeland, A Land for All is, in the eyes of Roots, a very, very plausible potential solution for the future. And it's certainly a target that we can aim for, a goal, a hope. It's not the only one, but it's a very, very important and inspiring goal. The work of Roots can be seen as moving towards the Two State, One Homeland model, but it could also be seen as moving towards other models that talk about partnership, that talk about cooperation, that talk about equality, that talk about recognizing both sides' connection to the whole land from Jordan to the Mediterranean. Next week, on Sunday, 90 minutes earlier than tonight's event, in Jerusalem time, today's event was at 8 o'clock. Next week would be at 9:30 at night, 90 minutes, I'm sorry, later, not earlier, 90 minutes later. On Sunday night, 9 p.m. Jerusalem time, we're going to be here hosting Yisrael Ferkash, who is the founder and director of a movement called Anachnu, meaning us. It's a movement that tries to develop the political, philosophical theory of how we create partnerships and cooperation between different elements of Israeli society, whether it's modern Orthodox, whether it's secular, whether it's Arabs, whether it's Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, and also how we can create partnerships with Palestinians living in the Palestinian territories. We're going to host Yisrael next week. He's going to talk primarily about mutual forgiveness between Palestinians and Israelis. How do we create mutual forgiveness as a foundation for going forward towards a future peace settlement? I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and please join us again next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meron.
Thank you very much. You have my mail. I sent it, so if anyone wants to get in touch,
My mail too.
you're invited.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much to our speakers and to everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.